Welcome to this amazing 300-kilometer flight. We have just crossed the border from Switzerland into Italy. And look at this day. Beautiful clouds, wonderful scenery, green, low, and still a lot of snow up high. Here I'm flying together with my good buddy Peter, and we're trying to hunt for a 300-kilometer triangle. We're just following this ridge here in order to make some altitude before the big valley crossing. And as you can see on the other side, it's quite a bit blue because usually this gets flushed over by the valley wind because the valley kind of turns 90 degrees and this is in the continuation of this big valley. So in the front there are not any good thermals, but as you can see in the back the clouds get better and better, and now it's a lot of straight flying and racing along these good clouds. It's just before noon, so the south-facing slopes work really well and we just need to make some altitude before this next small valley crossing. On the other side, we thermal back up in order to have enough altitude to really set this first turn point as deep into the snow, as far away as possible, really into winter wonderland as you could have seen. And now we're already on the way back, thermaling back up again for this valley crossing, and then it's just full on racing mode. As you can see, it's noon, good south facing slopes, perfect clouds so I can fly straight basically all the time, just pushing speed bar as hard as I dare. And then there come up a few valley crossings. They're not so long, and after every crossing there's a good cloud waiting, so it's kind of easy, straightforward. I just make sure that I always do base in order to not get stuck low down into the valley wind. But overall it's quite straightforward flying, quite good thermals. There is also some company, as you can see. On the next transition, I was wondering if I should thermal up on the middle ridge that we can see here. However, there were not so good clouds, so I decided to go straight for the next one. Here I get a bit stuck low because I don't arrive super well above the ridge, but after a while I managed to climb out and then the thermal was really strong. And now I was already full speed flying towards Switzerland. And you can see on the other side the clouds become a kind of topic for the first time because they start to shade in the slope, so half of the slope is in the shade already. So I make sure to do base again and don't go too low and stay in the sun. And you can already see on the next kind of crossing to the left it's all in the shade, and I decide to stay more on the right where there is still sun in order to have a reliable thermal and not get stuck in the shade. This becomes more and more of a problem as the clouds grow bigger. Up high we also have a kind of an easterly component of the wind which pushes the clouds into the west facing afternoon slopes, and you can see in the next valley it's really very much shaded in, it's all dark, and I thought, oh no, now I'm kind of screwed. But I was lucky and I found a little bit of a tiny climb that still brought me back up and helped me to manage to get turnpoint 2 again in the deep snow. And while I was doing that, it opened back up again and you can see there is a bit more sun in the valley and the thermals are back on. Here you can really see well that we have this easterly component up high which pushes the clouds towards the west-facing afternoon sun slopes, so it kills the thermals. And then you have this cycle where the wind pushes the clouds over, they shade in, so the clouds die again and the sun comes back and the cycle reverses. So you have to be really careful to be in the good moment of this cycle. And here I hit it perfectly into the sunny slope. I can thermal up in absolutely no time. It's super quick. And generally I hit it quite well also in the next valley. But I'm constantly aware that I have to be careful to not get stuck behind big clouds. And you can see in the next valley actually to the right it's quite dark, to the left it's sunny. But I can see to the left there's just new big clouds arriving, so I decide to go more to the right And actually here I get stuck a little bit because there has been some shade into this slope for quite a while, and I just managed to climb out a bit later in a slope a bit more behind which had less shade. And now I'm on the way back into Italy, and you can see on the right there is moist air coming from the lake, and this creates this quite eerie looking clouds that flow over the pass here with much more lower cloud base than up north, where you can really see the moisture pushing in. And I can get here quite some interesting convergence, which I'm not sure where it's coming from, because maybe you have the northeasterly wind up high and the valley wind that converged here, but I'm not entirely sure. I soar up in this kind of north-facing slope, and I make sure that I get enough altitude to cross this next big valley, the Valtellina. And now it's already afternoon. The valley wind down here is very strong, so I make sure to first soar up in the Louvre side. Then I jump down into this slope, and I have to work a bit in order to get back up out of the valley wind, back into thermal territory. But I managed to connect again with the clouds. As you can see, cloud base is getting lower and lower here because we have more and more moisture that gets drawn in from the lowlands and from the lake. However, in this perfect west-facing afternoon slopes, I can still climb up and go deep into the mountains and look at the view. It's beautiful, gorgeous. I can grab turnpoint 3 for a 300k triangle. On the way out, you can see that the cloud base is falling more and more, and I'm just flying along the clouds while they drop lower and lower. And now it becomes difficult to fight against the valley wind. It's really tedious flying because the valley wind reaches very high up and is actually quite strong. So I need to make sure to climb up as high as possible on every climb. And then I punch into the wind, and often I lose all the altitude that I have painstakingly made before again. And here again I push into the wind. On the other side it doesn't look so good, and I lose a lot of altitude while pushing into the wind. And I also get a little bit flushed, and then I just have to push into the Louvre side again on the other side. But the climbs here are not so strong, so I really get a bit desperate, and I search and I search, and I try to soar up as high as possible, but ultimately I have no choice left but to push further into the wind. And behind this ridge I get a bit flushed, and ultimately I decide, okay, I'm going to cross the valley again into this perfect slope that gets hit by the valley wind, so I can soar back up. And now I take quite my time to soar up as high as possible. First of all, of course, this is good because it gives me altitude to glide back. But on the other hand, I was also hoping that the valley wind would drop because, as you can see, the sun has set, and usually around sunset the valley wind drops a lot. However, it kept quite strong, and ultimately I had no choice but to push just out into the wind and to try to fly back as far as I could, because the valley wind was not dropping any significant amount. And you can see the gust front still on the lake here, and I tried to push to this delta in front, and it looks very good, but at the end I get actually flushed quite hard, and there's not so many landings, and it got actually super tight. I just came super close to this rooftop, and just as I thought I had made it, I spot this telephone wire underneath me and can just clear it in order to get to the good landing field, which is a nice grassy field here. And as you can see, the valley wind is actually still quite strong, still blowing hard even after sunset, which made it hard to do these final meters. And I just missed the 300 k's by about 150 meters. However, I'm still super happy. It was an awesome flight, and I hope to see you next time for the next video.